Hello students, the topic of our video today is posting journal entries to the general ledger. So I hope you've read about this already and have a bit of a background on what we're about to do. So when you do a journal entry, it represents a single transaction. And over the course of a month perhaps, or maybe just a week, you may use the same account many times. So for example, one of our most popular accounts, Cash, might have 10 or 15 different transactions. So at some point you're going to say, hey, how much cash do I have? You cannot look at one journal entry and say, aha, that's how much cash I have. Cash, of course, is coming in with a debit and going out with a credit. And at any day, any given day, close of business for the day, we have a certain amount of cash. So a ledger is defined as a continuing record. A record of what? Well, the record of the balance of any single account. So staying with our example of cash, we could say, well, on April 30, we had $5,000 of cash. So that's a debit balance, $5,000. And then we could take all of our journal entries through May, we could post them, and we'll go through this posting process in the video. So post them to the cash ledger account, and then when we balance off that ledger, we know how much cash we have. So the ledger is a continuing record, or sort of a running total, you could call it, of the balance of any account. And why do we have it? Well, we like to know that our accounts are still in balance. So not just, every transaction debits equal credits, but every single account altogether in your whole business, all the debits equal all the credits. So if we know the balance of every single account, it allows us to copy those down and do what's called a trial balance to see if all our debits equal all our credits. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Now, I've made 4 journal entries here, and these are quick journal entries. I've only done 4 because the process of posting for doing it manually is super boring and somewhat mindless and easy. Once you know how to do it, if you can do it 4 times, you can do it 100 times. And in the real world, posting is done by your accounting software. So you key in the journal entry one way or the other, depending on the software, and the software posts it for you and balances everything for you. So, again, in real life, no one has to do this anymore. But as a student, you need to learn the concept of what's going on and at least do it a little bit, and then you know how to post to an account. Okay, so let's look at our 4 journal entries really briefly. I have a debit to cash and a credit to service revenue. So $400. I just made up these numbers, they don't mean much. So here's providing services providing services for cash. Then I've debited accounts payable, credited cash, and you can probably figure out this means I paid an account payable. I've debited cash and credited JStorm Capital, and that means the owner invested cash in the business. And last of all, I've debited cash and credited accounts receivable, and that means I've received cash from a customer who owes us money. So those are the 4 transactions. We've done the journal entry already, and now we're going to look at how to post these to the ledger accounts and do a trial balance. So let's look at our ledger accounts over here. You'll notice that I've set them up in order of the chart of accounts. So assets first, then liabilities, then capital accounts, and then revenues, and expenses. Now, I didn't have any expenses in this example, but it works the same way. So you may be wondering what this start is. Now, before I go on, I've used T accounts to represent a ledger account. If you have an accounting textbook, you can probably look up what a ledger account really looks like. And it has a date column, it has a debit column, it has a credit column, and it has a balance column. So there are a few more columns. In accounting classes, we often use a T account as a short form of a ledger. So I've used T accounts here as a short form. My T accounts have a date column, a debit column, and a credit column. And you'll notice that if you look, there's an underline here and a line in the middle. That's the T of a T account. And you can make this on Excel, or you can use a word table. And instead of a balance column, what we usually do with a T account is we just balance it at the end. We just take the debits away from the credits or vice versa, and we find the balance. So why do we have $5,000 here and a check mark? This is the balance forward from the previous month. So this isn't a brand new business. It's already running. Now, I've made it a very small business. We don't have many accounts. However, when you see a check mark and a $5,000, sorry, I got interrupted there for a sec. So the $5,000 is the existing balance, and we have a check mark to indicate that this is a balance forward. So if you're actually doing an accounting problem from your textbook or an assignment, and it says the balances are, this is how you put the balances into your T account. So I have an existing balance in cash and accounts receivable and accounts payable and capital. Now, if we were to add these up, we would see that debits equal credits. So let's get to posting to our accounts. And this is where the PR column comes in. It stands for posting reference. What's going to go into here is the account number. So every account has a number, and I've got them right here. And those are the numbers that we put in after we post the transaction to that account. Now, in the old days, like really old days, before automated accounting software, when this was done manually by a lot of small businesses, people needed this PR column to know how far down a journal they had finished posting, so that they didn't post things 2 times. Maybe they, were doing accounting and had to go talk to a customer, and the PR column said, you're done to there. And then, so if I had the PR column filled in all the way to here, I would know I've done those, but I haven't done this transaction here. Okay, so that was the historical use of it. And as an accounting student, you can do the same thing. I mean, you could, if you had to do an exercise like this, you could post all these, put in the number, and then you could go have supper and then come back to it later. So let's post our first one. So this is cash. It's a debit, and it's 400. So, and it's on May 3. So I'm just going to go here. I've got May 3 and a debit of 400. So that's in the T account. I can come back here with 101, put in my 101, and that's posted. Now let's post the other half. Let's do the credit to service revenue. It's also 400. So we're going to go down here. We're going to find service revenue, put in the date, May 3, and credit 400. And then the account title there was 401. So I'm going to put in my 401. Now what I'd like you to notice is that I posted a debit of 400 and I posted a credit of 400. That means all of these accounts still have debits equal credits if we were to add them up. As long as I don't forget one, my ledger will also be in balance when I'm done. Now, that's not too hard, is it? So let's post transaction number 2. Accounts payable debit 500 on May 7. So I'm going to put in the date here. And that was an accounts payable debit. So someone actually paid part of their bill. You can see they didn't pay it all. And that is account 201. So I put the 201 right here. Now that's a cash credit of 500. So we're going to pay cash. Now this is on May 7. So what I'm going to do here is just write a 7. I don't need to keep repeating May. But I did spend money to pay my account payable. So here's 500 credit to cash. And that was 101. Okay, now here we receive cash because the owner invested money. So we're going to go to cash, and it's May 10, and we have a $1,000 debit. So I'm going to put in a 10. And then I'm going to put in our $1,000 debit. And cash is 101. So we put in the account. Now, JStorm Capital is account 301. That's a credit of 1,000. So we're going to go here. We're going to put in our date. And that was a credit of 1,000. We have it. So account number 301. Now you probably notice that this is a somewhat repetitive process. You could have 50 accounts and you could have 50 journal entries, and you would just continue on down the page doing these one at a time until you're just really tired of doing it. So now you can see one of the advantages of accounting software. It does this tedious work for you. Luckily, if you're an accounting student just starting your accounting course, you only have to do this a little bit for practice, and then mostly instructors won't ask you to do it anymore once you know what to do. So we'll just do one more entry, and this is receiving cash from our customer on account. So again, here we have the date, May 12, and we received $6,000 from our customer, and that's account 101. Now let's look what happened to our accounts receivable right here. Put in the date, May 12, credit accounts receivable 6,000. And that is account 102, put it here. Okay, we've finished all of the posting, but now we need to get our account balances. So let's do cash first. Now I can tell we have a debit balance here, right? And we should have a debit balance. Cash is an asset. So we'll underline this number, and what we want to do is we want to add up all the debits and subtract that one credit, and that will be the balance of our account. So I'll just do this a slow way. Can I get that? Oh gosh, can't do that. Hang on, I'm going to use sum. Now it's not 12.4 because they didn't subtract the credit. So I'm going to take that, which is the sum of all the debits, and then I'm going to amend this formula by subtracting that $500. So we should have 11.9. Now accounts receivable is also an asset. So let's see what we have. Now this is a little easier. We can take our debit of 8, we can subtract our credit of 6, and there's our $2,000 debit balance. Let's look at accounts payable. Now accounts payable is a liability. It has a credit balance. So we should have either 0 because we paid off everything we owe, or a credit balance. So let's look at this. If the credit number is bigger than the debit number, then we have a credit balance. So whatever is bigger, 700 being bigger than 500, we have a credit balance. So we're going to take the credit of 7, subtract the debit of 5, and the account balance is $200. Now in the capital account, we didn't actually have any debits, so we're just going to add those two. There we go. And then in the revenue account, we only had one. I don't need to balance this off. I don't need to add anything. It's just $400. Great. So we have balanced every ledger to find out the account balance on May 12th. You could have a lot of transactions from the 12th to the end of the month, and you're probably going to do a trial balance at the end of the month. But for us, we're going to do one right now. Let's look at our trial balance. Trial balance is there to make sure that all the debits in your ledger are the same total as all the credits in your ledger. So this is very simple. We're just, now that we have account balances, we're just copying balances. So we'll be adding these up at the end. Whatever that number is, I'm going to want to underline it to add. Now, cash. All I need is my cash balance. It's 11.9, as you can see to the left. So I can type in 11.9, but I'm on Excel. I can also copy it. I can go equals that, and there's my 11.9. Now accounts receivable, the balance here is 2,000. I can go equal that, 2,000. Accounts payable is my first credit, and it's 200. So again, I can do that, or I can just type in 200 because that's what it says. JStorm Capital, 13.3. So it's also a credit, and revenue has a balance of 400. I'm going to put that here, 400. Now, in a business, you have to keep track of dollars and cents because, you know, our economy does have pennies in it still, even though in Canada we don't use pennies in circulation. We still have pennies when we bill people and so on. So we would normally in a business do our, keep our accounting records in dollars and cents. Now, what I'm going to do, because it's school, is I'm just going to put these to even dollars. Often that's what happens when you're looking at a project in your accounting class. So the question is, do we balance? Okay, so do we balance? Well, I'm going to sum up those numbers. I'm going to sum up these numbers. And they're both 13.9. That's really good news. You want these to balance. If they don't balance, then you've made a mistake somewhere and you have to go back and try and find your mistake. You know, the mistake could be forgetting a 0, keying a number in wrong, or missing, transposing figures often is the case. Like putting in, instead of 11.9, putting in 191 or something. Big mistake. Okay, so when we do a trial balance, we have to start the first number in each column with a dollar sign, and we need a dollar sign in the statement total. So this number, this number, this number, and this number need a dollar sign, and that's the first number in a column and the statement total. Then the statement total needs to be double underlined. So I'm going to go over here, I'm going to find it, I'm going to double underline. So we're done. We have started with 4 journal entries, we've posted them to the ledger accounts, and we've made a trial balance to make sure that all our debits still equal all our credits. So this is correct. It all looks good. And we're done. See you next time.